Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today as part of the New Jersey Self-Advocacy Project's Stay Healthy at Home webinar series. This is a weekly series of webinars, and we are so happy that you can be here today to join us for this session. For those of you who may be new to the series, we welcome questions, comments, and feedback throughout. So you can use the chat box here. I'll just type, "Hi, everyone," in the chat box to call attention to that option and one way of contributing your thoughts. You can also use the Q&A box. So at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should see a little icon with two speech bubbles with the letters Q and A, questions and answers. So you can submit questions there as well. We will keep an eye on both the chat and the Q&A throughout our time together. So don't be shy. Feel free to type your questions, comments, and feedback there. So if there are any issues with audio or video, I just want to call attention to the mute and unmute buttons and the audio settings. So if you can't hear us, that may be because you need to change the speaker that you're connected to. But if you have any other issues, just let us know in the chat box, please. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to jump into our discussion today. This is all about creating a culture of inclusion. So we want to discuss a couple different very important topics with you all today. So let's go to introductions. I'm going to turn it over to my co-presenter. Take it away, Pam.
Hi, my name is Pam King. I'm a self-advocate, member of Council 4 of the New Jersey Statewide Self-Advocacy Network.
Great, Pam, thank you. And do you want to say anything else about where you work or where you're from?
Yeah, I work at Ability Solutions in Westville, and I live at Stony Brook Apartments in Deptford, New Jersey.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Pam, for being here today.
You're welcome.
As a co-presenter. And my name is Ashley Ritchie. I'm the director of the New Jersey Self-Advocacy Project, which is a program of the ARC of New Jersey. So as a team, we work with self-advocates statewide, and we support efforts to engage people in advocacy and policy discussions and self-advocacy meetings. So if you would like to know more about the Self-Advocacy Project, you can use that link at the bottom of our Zoom screen right now, www.njselfadvocacyproject.org. Okay. I also want to enable the live transcription services right now. So if anybody would like to use the transcription option, that is available on Zoom right now. So you can enable it or turn it off, whatever you would like to do. You can also move the transcription text box all over the screen and place it where you would like. Okay, so let's get into our discussion topics. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to share just a little bit more about our program. For those of you who are not familiar, the Self-Advocacy Project does host monthly self-advocacy meetings. We are currently 100% virtual. So our self-advocacy meetings, up to 6 per month, are held and are based on your geographic location in the state. So again, all of the information is available on our website, including information about our virtual programming on health and wellness topics. Healthy Lifestyles Project Live is held every Wednesday and Friday on Zoom. And again, this is a live clickable link. So if you'd like more information, you can click that blue link right there. And again, you're here today for the Stay Healthy at Home series. We also have brain games every Thursday from 1 until 2 o'clock. So we invite you to check this out. If you or anybody that you know would like to get involved, learn more about self-advocacy or our Healthy Lifestyles Project, please don't hesitate. And this is a very handy weekly planner graphic that the wonderful Frankie Bayak, our media and communications coordinator, created. And I would love if we can pop this in the chat just so we can share this with everybody. This is a great way of keeping up to date on all of our virtual happenings. Okay, so now we are ready for our discussion topics. Pam, would you like to take this slide?
Sure. We have a lot to cover in our hour together. We will discuss different types of bullying and how often it happens. We will also share a specific way parents, teachers, and students can help create a more inclusive environment at home and at school.
Yes, thank you so much, Pam.
You are
You know, that's really the crux of it today. We want you guys to be able to leave this webinar, leave this hour together and feel confident in identifying different forms of bullying, how common it is, and what the long-term impact is. We also want to discuss specific techniques to help you, whether you are a self-advocate, an adult with a disability, or someone who supports a self-advocate or a loved one with a disability. How can we effectively respond to bullying, whether it's happening in person, online, a combination of both, and really figure out what steps can we take to cut down on bullying and exclusion and instead create that culture of inclusion. And if inclusion is a new term for you, a new idea, that's okay. That's why we're here. We're going to explain it all today. Pam, would you like to cover this slide?
sure. Let's start off with an important question. Why are kids bullied? This can happen for many reasons, but lack of communication and understanding play a big role. Keep in mind that your kids may ask questions you don't know the answer to. That's a great opportunity for both of you to research online and learn together. Another good tip, if your child or students ask questions about different cultures or different forms of disability, encourage that behavior rather than shushing them or pulling them away. That doesn't help anyone. Many people with disabilities would be happy to address a question that can lead to understanding. You can help your student or loved one learn about other cultures by attending community events or researching on the internet together. We also know that bullies tend to be bullied themselves and experience lower self-esteem. So instead of being jealous or envious of someone's talents and skills, teachers can help work toward inclusion by saying, "Tell us how you do this. Teach us and help us improve our skills." Take opportunities to celebrate every student's contributions and skills, not just those students who are excelling or easily achieving good grades.
Thank you, Pam. Well said.
You're welcome.
I think, you know, in researching our presentation today, Pam and I found this particular graphic. And, you know, it gives us some food for thought, right? We know that their bullying is happening both in school and in adult life. And we figure that, you know, a lack of understanding oftentimes contributes to exclusionary actions and bullying. So like Pam is saying, you know, one of the actionable steps we can take is seek out ways to learn about other cultures, other types of disability, other races and groups that aren't like you, you know, seek and try to know about these things and teach people about these things. And if there are any staff or teachers on the webinar today, you know, how can you build in that curiosity and that education into your own programs? Like Pam said, maybe it's focusing on one particular participant's abilities and really celebrating what they can do with not so much of an emphasis on what maybe they're struggling with. And also talking about these differences. It's not a bad thing. Talking about especially with younger children, or people who are learning about different cultures and backgrounds and different types of disability. Like Pam said, instead of kind of like pulling a kid away or shushing them when they ask a question, that's a great opportunity for education to happen, instead of making them feel like, asking questions and seeking to learn about someone who might be a little different. That's not a bad thing. So starting early and welcoming those opportunities. So, we wanted to touch on prevalence. How often is bullying happening? I don't know if any of us need proof that bullying is pretty pervasive in certain settings, especially school settings, but that is absolutely what the research suggests. I want to highlight the second point here that identifies where in the school instances of bullying, harassment, and intimidation are most often occurring. So it's this hallway or stairwell. This is a big one. The hallway or stairwell, 43% of people experiencing bullying said it happened there. And then inside the classroom, 42%, very close. So why focus on the where? Why focus on where this is happening? Because it's important to identify and address that the bullying that's happening in real time. Ultimately, that's our goal. We want to catch it in vivo as it's happening. So that's the most effective way of dealing with it. That's what the research tells us, especially with in-person bullying where there's no proof, maybe so to speak, that there's cyberbullying. It's important to step in and act. So here's a next actionable step we can take together. If we know where in the school or program this type of activity is happening, could we maybe allocate some of our resources to those places, right? So as programs are moving between one room to another, one building to another, maybe you have more staff stationed in those transitory places to be on the lookout for, is someone being excluded? What kind of, is there name calling happening? Is there physical intimidation happening? And be able to feel trained and ready to address that as it's happening. So we also want to point out, when we host workshops for adults with disabilities on bullying prevention, we also make sure that everyone understands exclusion, purposely trying to exclude someone based on a perceived difference. That is bullying. So we just want to make that very clear. We are including exclusionary behaviors, purposely ostracizing someone or ignoring someone or icing them out. That all falls under the category of bullying. Okay. Pam, would you like to cover the slide on our gateway behaviors?
Sure. As we said, bullying can be very obvious when it is physical in nature, like pushing and shoving, but bullying can take on many forms. So we want to share some things to look out for that might be happening before physical acts of violence take place. Eye rolling, prolonged staring, back turning, staring and spreading rumors, laughing cruelly, encouraging others to laugh, name calling, nicknames, ignoring or excluding, causing physical harm, spying, and stalking.
Thank you, Pam.
You're welcome.
So yeah, these behaviors, some of them, you might be reading them and maybe you don't identify them necessarily as traditional types of bullying. But, we are here to say these are the gateway behaviors that definitely lead to exclusionary bullying type behaviors. So our ask here is that you and your staff and your team and your support systems have a plan in place if you pick up on these types of behaviors happening. So being ready to put an intervention in place as soon as you see stuff like this can go a long way toward stopping the bullying from increasing in severity or frequency, and also helping everybody feel safe. So, unlike the old saying, we believe that words absolutely do hurt and they leave a lasting impact. So, and they can echo long after bruises or cuts heal. So the research tells us that these behaviors, like the eye rolling Pam mentioned, and the back turning and the name calling, this leads to bullying. And if we can stop it here, that's what we want to do. So we hope that you include these specific behaviors in any harassment, intimidation, and bullying policies that you have at your agency or school. Because again, these can be very, very damaging. One other point, we mentioned name calling or quote unquote nicknames. Sometimes, our staff will hear from program staff or other self-advocates who say, this person calls me this name and it's kind of close to my name, but I don't like it, but they say they're just kidding. It's just a nickname. As a self-advocate, we hope that a person would feel confident saying, stop calling me that. I don't like that. Here's what I want to be called. This is my name. But also staff, parents, help support that. Help support that advocacy. If you hear someone using a nickname, maybe you can step in and go, hey, is that okay with you? Are you sure you like being called that name? And if not, try to stop it from happening. Allow someone's preference to be respected. So, yes, I see in the Q&A box, high school and summer school, definitely, this is where some of this behavior may be happening. So it's not just in the adult system, it's not just in the school. It can happen really throughout a lifetime. And Adam, if you do have questions, please feel free to type those in the chat. And we'll have a Q&A at the end where you can actually verbally share your questions as well. Okay, we're going to be moving on to our next slide here. I took a snapshot of one of the slides that we use in our anti-bullying trainings that we do for self-advocates throughout the state. This photo on the right depicts a couple members of a college football team having lunch with someone who has a physical disability. They're using a motorized wheelchair. And, the story came out that, these football players made the choice to meet someone new, and sit down with this person and speak to them and spend time with them. And that's another actionable step. How can you help other people feel included? Even if, they seem like they're different from you, especially if they seem like they're different from you, how can we, kind of extend that branch and invite them to have lunch with us or learn more about them? Because again, purposely excluding someone, if we're doing things to make someone else feel like they aren't a part of our group, or, we don't want to be around them, that makes people feel really bad, right? Any of us who've ever felt excluded, I don't think we look back and say, yeah, that was great. I liked feeling different and other from other people. We want to be part of a group. So as much as we can, try to build that in, whether it's at school or at work or summer school or, program. It's easy to do and it's free. Pam, do you want to talk a little bit about our cyberbullying slide here?
Sure. There's lots of cyberbullying that to get it on the text, on your phone, on the computer, emails, regular mail, passing papers through anywhere. And it doesn't make people feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. Pam, I like that you brought up, the cyberbullying can be happening over text, right? We can get a text message. Yeah. Things like Facebook, Instagram, right? TikTok, even we can be exposed to, messages that might be hurtful to us. And one thing about this slide is, we wanted to point out some of the stats about cyberbullying. And unfortunately, about 1 in 5 tweens, or people who are between the ages of 9 and 12 years old, 1 in 5 of this group has reported cyberbullying, or at least seeing cyberbullying happening, whether it was to them or to someone else. And cyberbullying is actually most often experienced among middle school students. So it's happening quite frequently. And like Pam said, it's happening in a lot of different ways. So does this mean none of us should use the internet ever again? No, no, we're not saying that. We're saying that we want to use it in a responsible, respectful way. So if you do see cyberbullying happening, here's another actionable step. If you see it happening, just know that it violates the rules of all major websites and social media outlets. Facebook doesn't allow it. Twitter doesn't allow it. Instagram doesn't allow it. Pick any outlet. They don't allow that. It's against their rules. So if you see it happening, there's usually a button to report that instance of cyberbullying. If it's happening to you, if anybody would like to answer in the chat, what if you experience cyberbullying? What would you do? Who might you tell about that? We would love to hear from you guys. And while we're waiting for any comments or questions or feedback, we're going to move on to our next slide here. And this is a resource that was created by a couple of researchers who have focused a lot on the effects of bullying. Oh yeah, Adam, you're absolutely right. FaceTime could be another outlet for this type of behavior, for sure. So doctors Hinduja and Patchen, Dr. Patchen and Dr. Hinduja developed the tip sheet we see here on the left. Top 10 ways to respond to cyberbullying. They focus a lot on an educational setting, but a lot of their tips could definitely be applied to other settings as well. And they really identify that teachers are kind of the front line in preventing this type of behavior from happening. So we love teachers. We believe that they have a very important role in educating students, but also looking out for students who might need that extra boost to help them advocate for themselves. So, if we see this happening, we want to tell someone. Pam, if it was happening to you, who do you think you can tell? Who would you talk to about it?
I can talk to bosses in work. I can talk about it with my family, friends, neighbors, friends, teachers, police officer, if there's a police in the school.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a resource
Staff,
officer.
anybody.
Yeah, absolutely, Pam. Pam.
And
Just
to make you be anonymous, you don't have to say your name.
So good point.
So that way you don't feel like you're going to be harassed by that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if you're, concerned about someone finding out that it was you who reported the bullying, you can also remain anonymous. You can say, I don't want my name mentioned, but here's what I saw or heard. And here's how it made me feel. And you can tell a teacher, a guidance counselor, you could tell your program staff, your manager, your supervisor at work or at program. And then of course, our social supports, our family members, our friends, our partners, because no one should be going through this on their own. That's really what we want everybody to know. There's people that can help you. You deserve to feel safe. So if it's happening, don't be quiet about it. Let people know. Okay, Pam, I'm gonna move on to our next slide here about bullying and how it relates to disability.
We think the higher rates of bullying experienced by people with disabilities can be changed through education at home and at school. Parents should want to teach the loved one about their own disability as well as disabilities other peers might experience. The fact is, some children won't know how to appropriately interact until they are taught. We are going to show you all a video that highlights some of the ways students can be taught how to interact in a respectful way with their peers with disabilities.
Absolutely. You know, we really want to see a joint effort here, right? Like Pam mentioned before, the person experiencing the bullying needs support usually in getting it to stop. So we know that students with specific types of learning disabilities, and autism spectrum disorder, as well as emotional behavioral disorders, do report experiencing higher rates of bullying than peers that don't have disabilities. And that's not just while they're in school. Research has shown that even after these students graduate, they report feeling ostracized and victimized and bullied throughout their lifetime. So, you know, again, this makes us think the impact of bullying, right? When it happens, it hurts, but it keeps hurting. You know, it keeps hurting when you feel excluded like this. So we want to be, you know, a change that stops this. We want to help stop this type of thing. So really what we found is that teachers, program staff, and people having appropriate social interactions together can help everybody learn what is appropriate. Like, what are appropriate things to say? How do I pick up on cues that someone might be uncomfortable with what I'm saying? These are training topics that we, as the project, do. So we talk about boundaries, and we talk about healthy communication and I statements, and how to effectively let people know what you need, being assertive rather than aggressive. So again, if anybody on this particular webinar is interested in those topics and helping folks with disabilities learn about them, please contact us. We have a form on our website you can use to request a free training. But yeah, we really want to see this ended because we know that, again, the long-term impact of bullying is not good. All right, so we have a short video that we're going to watch together. And it really focuses on our next big topic of inclusion. So I'm going to change the slide here. I'll turn my volume all the way up and let's check it out.
Play and playgrounds are so important for children because play is the way that we learn to connect with the world. At Inclusion Matters by Shane's Inspiration, we create inclusive playgrounds and provide workshops for teachers that help them to understand the importance of social inclusion.
Fostering social inclusion for my students is so important because that gives them the opportunity to make our classroom a safe space and hopefully create a better and more inclusive world.
Let's do the sign for play. There's play. Who remembers swing? It's very similar like swing, or like play. Yep, it's kind of a front and back, okay? Very good.
So our education program is called Together We Are Able. The design and the intent of the program is for children to have a candid discussion around disability, experience that conversation through play, and then to sum it up at the end so that all of those perceptions and misconceptions are sort of put to rest. What does the word disability mean to you?
It means that they can't really do lots of things. They can't do the things that we could do as a person without disabilities.
Some of the misconceptions and assumptions that students talk about in that pre-conversation has to do with how they define disability. Well, if you're in a wheelchair, you can't do anything. That is common, and there's no judgment, and there can be no judgment on that with students because that is their limited experience.
Well, when I see somebody in a wheelchair, I kind of feel bad for them. Like they can't really adapt and play with me. And I think that's really sad.
During the pre-visit, because students don't feel like they're being taught or talked at, they know, okay, this is something that I can learn from, and here now are some tips and tools and tricks that I can use, and then they take off running, sometimes literally.
That second step is the playground experience, and that's where we purposefully connect children together in buddy groups, and then through play, they can physically experience everything that we talked about.
Looking eyes.
The introductions are super important. You come down to eye level and we make the connection. Once they've done that and all students are comfortable, then they take their buddy and everybody explores the playground and they play.
Ooh, everybody come down low. And who's this?
My buddy was Parker, and we both had this excitement when we first met each other. I introduced myself, he introduced himself, and then that moment on, I held his hand. He just didn't let go.
I think it's really important for students in my class to understand that this is someone that you can learn from. This isn't about you helping someone. That can be part of it, certainly, but it's also about what gifts do both buddies on both ends have to bring to each other.
It makes my heart feel really warm. I just feel so good.
We like playing with you, Nika.
One, two, three.
And then we come back in and we do a debrief, or what we call a post conversation. And that really is a time for students from the typically developing class to synthesize what they experience. Raise your hand if you had a good time getting to know your buddy, right? Was there anything that this time with your buddy taught you?
Don't judge a book by its cover, and everybody's different in their own way, just to make sure that everybody's being included.
I like that. We have a lot more things in common than not.
I think it's really important to get kids talking about inclusivity at a wide level. My students are going to be going into a very diverse world, and the more that they're able to be inclusive of others, the better they're going to make the world around them.
You want to go on the other side now?
Talk to your principal. Come up with something small that you can start with. Maybe it's a conversation at your staff meeting. If you're a general education teacher, find a special ed teacher that would want to partner with you. Start the conversation.
If I could see my students come away from the fourth grade with anything, I would want them to ultimately be strong allies for others. As a teacher, nothing would make me more proud.
Okay, so thank you all for watching that with us. If you have any questions, comments, anything, any reactions to that video, type them in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. But, we thought that this was a nice segue, or, good lead into a discussion on inclusion. We promised you guys to share tips about how to create a culture of inclusion in all the spaces you're in. And we thought that this video and this particular program does a great job of highlighting some really cool techniques for children. So, the video starts off with a pre-exposure interview, right? The students are asked to talk about their perceptions of folks with disabilities before they meet with the other students on the playground. And maybe not surprisingly, some of the students are saying things like, I feel bad. The person in the wheelchair can't play with me. They can't do certain things. We're hearing kind of a message that emphasizes the deficits. And, we don't want that. We want people to focus on what can someone else do? What are they good at? What do they like? What makes them fun and unique? And I love the video because once everybody starts playing together, right? They start playing, they're having a great time. There's then an emphasis on, this is great. This is fun. I had a good, this is a really fun time for everybody. no one's stopping and saying, oh, this person can't do this or that. The commonality between everybody, the things we have in common is how the video ends. And also being an ally. So if you're a person that works in the field or has a loved one with disabilities, be an ally. Be there to step in if you do see something going on that isn't positive or can be going better with a bit more education or exposure. Be that source and say, hey, let's have a conversation about this. Because that's really inclusion, taking steps to provide equal access, resources, and opportunities for everybody who might be otherwise excluded or marginalized. So typically marginalized, excluded groups tend to be members of, maybe people who have physical or mental disabilities or identify as members of other minority groups. So if our goal is inclusion and equality, equal access, which looks a little something like this bottom right-hand picture here, we want to get there, but it's going to take work. It doesn't just happen with changing our own minds. We have to take steps to help change other people's minds as well. So Pam, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about your experience
Yes.
in school. Take it away.
I felt included at my school. I knew I wanted to change classrooms throughout the day instead of being in a contained classroom. My mom and I found Burlington County Special Services, and it stood out because I could change classes, get involved in student government, join marching band. I attended college at NYIT for 3 years on Long Island. I earned a certificate in baking from BOCES, Board of Cooperative Education Services, food service, and internship at Culinary Arts Restaurant on campus.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Pam.
You're welcome.
So just to clarify, you were, you completed the food service
Yes.
internship at the Culinary Arts Restaurant on the campus of NYIT in New York, right?
Yes.
Long Island?
Yep, Long Island.
Yeah, and do you want to talk a little bit about like what kinds of things you worked on while you were there?
Yeah, it was actually a Vocational Independence Program that NYIT had for people with disability, but we stayed on campus and it was all included. It was a mix of people with disability, non-disabled, but we had our own classroom for us to do. But then when you went into the cafeteria, it was a mix of everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what we're getting at, right? Like that's inclusion. And we kind of have this graphic here to explain in visual terms what exclusionary behavior is, right? We see people on the outside in the exclusion box. Segregation is saying, well, people are on the outside, but they have their own specific place to be or go. Whereas inclusion, as Pam mentioned, it might be a program, a vocational readiness program that includes not just people with disabilities, but people without disabilities as well, learning and working together. And, that's one model. And that's one way to not only provide work readiness skills, but also to provide exposure to people that don't have disabilities who might want to and need to learn more about what it means to work with and support someone with a disability on the job. And Jane, thank you so much for your comment. We agree, inclusion, it's seen in a very real way in that video with the children in their program. So I agree. Being included is a wonderful feeling. I think as humans, we need that. We need to feel included. And Adam, thank you for your comment. The principal's office, going to the principal or school administration if something is happening at school that makes you uncomfortable, that's definitely another way to handle it. And Pam, speaking of inclusion, did you want to mention a little bit about your living arrangement?
Sure. I live at Stony Brook Apartments in Deptford, New Jersey. And I have great neighbors. I walk my dog. There's a bunch of dogs here. My dog gets to play with some of them, and I get to talk to people. I take Access Link. I take Send Hand to work and back. I take Access Link to go to my mom's house. And I take Uber and Lyft if I need to.
Yeah. Pam, I love that you included Lucky in your discussion.
Yes.
Pam mentioned, having a dog. And if having a dog isn't one of the most quickest, easiest ways to make a friend, I don't know what is. Right?
Yes.
A cute dog draws in all the attention, right, Pam?
You're right.
So, when we talk about inclusion, right, it not only sounds nice, but it's better for everybody. So being inclusive as a society means everybody has access. That could mean physical access, like a ramp instead of a bunch of steps. That helps not only people who have mobility issues and might use a wheelchair that can't climb steps, but it helps, the parent who's pushing a stroller and carrying a 2-year-old. It helps people who are, maybe walking a dog or carrying a bunch of groceries. So when we really talk about inclusion, we want to see it in all types of settings. So Pam mentioned transportation as well, right? Like, okay, Access Link is there, but also we want folks with disabilities to be clued into how to use other ride sharing options as well. And, our message for parents and staff who might be hesitant is technology can be a huge asset. We know transportation is an issue. We know staff are so strapped for time and funds. They're pulled in so many directions. What about helping someone, download the Lyft or Uber app and figure out how to request a ride and use texting to keep in touch and let you know where they are? These are just suggestions for how we can maybe help someone be more independent.
And now on Uber app, they
Yeah.
also have a thing that you can put your mom or dad's cell phone number and they can track you to make sure you get into the place you need to be too now.
That is a great.
And they also have a thing on there, a 911 thing on there. So if something doesn't feel right or something goes on, you can press that button on the phone on the Uber app.
Pam, thank you for sharing that. I was not aware of that. Those are
Yeah.
great safety features.
Yes.
Because we know parents and staff are hesitant. We know parents and staff might have questions or reservations, but again, if someone that you support and someone that you love wants to experience new things, try new things, get out there and, join a club or, go bowling and meet new people, that's life. That's adult life. So we want to do that as much as we can and really, especially help to build in these goals into the plans, into any support plans or employment plans that are happening. We want the self-advocate to be front and center. The person with a disability who the plan is written for and about should be the star of that plan. It's their individualized support plan, so their individual goals need to be front and center. Okay, so we wanted to share this quote from Alice Walker. Look closely at the present you are constructing. It should look like the future you are dreaming. We think that is a great way of summing up taking steps now that can help us in the future. And however this resonates with you, whatever this means for you, think about that. What is your goal? Where do you want to be in 6 months from now or a year from now? What do you want the world around you to look like? And how are you helping to either be an ally to support that or being an advocate for yourself to make those changes happen? We definitely think that building those self-advocacy skills is so important. So Pam, do you want to take this slide for us?
Sure. My mom saw a lot of parents not explaining their child's disability to them. She told me everything. She didn't keep any secrets. There's a lot of people out there who still treat their adult loved ones like children. I get it. Every disability is different, and some folks need more help But if your loved one can go into school or day program on their own without holding your hand, try that out. Otherwise, let them do things on their own. My mom used to ask me if I wanted her to go into medical appointments with me. I had the choice. Sometimes she came in with me, sometimes I went on my own.
Pam, thank you so much
Oh,
again
you're
for
welcome.
sharing that. You know, when Pam and I were developing the slides together, we definitely wanted to build in specific skills that we all could take to encourage advocacy. So, you know, Pam talked about her mother being a strong advocate for her early on, but then your mom also realizing that you needed those skills yourself, right? You wanted
Yes.
to be able to do it for yourself and supporting that. So, you know, whether your loved one is a full-grown adult, whether your loved one is still in elementary school or high school, we think that there are some simple things that we can build into any interaction to basically model the behavior that you want to see, especially with boundaries. So we have some specific talking points on the slide here. You know, we want people to feel comfortable in their own bodies and feel like they have control over, if nothing else, at least have control over physical touch, who is touching you, and setting those boundaries for yourself. So if you or someone else is experiencing unwanted touch, you know, some things you can say are, stop that. I don't like it. You're making me uncomfortable. Don't touch me. Or I don't feel like giving you a hug right now, right? If we're having a rough day, maybe we need time to ourselves. How about I need a minute? Go take time alone, figure it out, and you can always come back to the conversation. And then kind of a callback to our discussion on bullying. Do not call me those names, you know, and help advocate for the name that you want to be called and how you want to be addressed. And these might seem like small things, right? Or we might think that the kid who doesn't want to give their grandma a hug is just being bratty. But in reality, as a parent or as a caregiver, a staff member, you can help show this person that they have autonomy over their body early on. Or on the flip side, if you force them to touch people they don't want to touch, you could be setting an example you might not want them to follow later on. So model the behavior you want to see. And please, please, above all else, include your loved one that has disabilities in any discussion about what's going on in their lives. Pam, are you part of support plan meetings? Were you part of your IEP meetings?
No, but my parents had me come in. The school would always say, no, you can't, but my parents said, come on, you're coming in with us. I don't care what they said.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's your individual plan. So you're the star of the show that day. You know, that's ideally how it should go. That every student receiving SE services should feel welcome at their planning meeting. And I applaud your parents for saying, you know, forget that. You got to be there. You know,
Yeah.
we don't. Yeah.
Legally,
Legally,
the school says no, but nope, you're coming in. I don't care what the school says.
There you go. Sometimes, you know, you have to do what feels right for the family. And legally, I believe, at least nowadays, every student should receive an invitation. And as far as I'm aware, it is illegal for a school to prevent a student from participating in their planning meeting, to whatever extent possible, right? Maybe some students don't feel as comfortable speaking up or might need an assistive device but they should be getting the opportunity to be there for sure. So we are going to watch another video that hopefully gives you a bunch of examples of how to be a self-advocate and some of the things that self-advocates all over the world are working on. And just to preface this video, self-advocacy is the civil rights movement led for and by people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's not just here in New Jersey, it's not just here in the US, it's a worldwide movement. So let's check out and hear from some of those advocates.
Self-advocacy means to speak up.
Speaking up for your rights, no matter what the issue or the concern is.
To speak for oneself and speak for others.
I have my own voice. I speak up for myself.
Standing up for your rights and not relying on staff or your support staff to make decisions for you.
The ability to be independent, live your life to its fullest extent.
We took issues like we'll work, we'll pay.
Be persistent in what you want. When you got control of your life, of your own everyday affairs.
Means given the ability to have choices in my life.
It's not just about information sharing, it's about being in the community.
I work really hard in the community because of my unique disability to get the word out that people like us should be in the community.
Speaking up for yourself, but also taking responsibility for your things.
Being able to know what you want and then being able to go for it and having somebody else that believes in it, that's able to help you.
I'm gonna fight for those that are like me, or it don't matter, it's just, I just don't like people taking advantage of.
They want to get the word out that they want something out of life.
As much as everybody tries to help people with various kinds of disabilities, we're the ones who really know what we need.
For years, the voices of people with intellectual disability were never heard. Decisions were made for them.
If it doesn't come from us, it comes from people who don't have an intellectual disability and they don't actually have the experience to talk about it.
The professionals need to listen to us more because they don't know as well as we do what we want to do.
Other people will decide what you will do. If you are not at the table, you don't know what those people are going to decide.
A part of being a self-advocate is to get out there and start networking.
And if you don't know how to do that, you should go and ask a self-advocate person that knows how to do it, and they'll help you.
There's tons of barriers out there, but attitudinal barriers are the biggest, I think.
The biggest thing is being included in the community with society, and it's inclusion within college, school.
We came out here to learn from y'all anyway, and that's what we want people to understand. Well, we need help and all that from y'all. That's what we want.
I like to be out, helping people, and to teach people.
I learned to speak up and not be ashamed of who I am.
Just like the civil rights movement before us, we try to do things to help people speak out for what they want and do what they believe in.
We just wanted to let everybody know just because you have a disability doesn't mean you're less than, or you don't know, or you're not committed to something.
We need a voice. We need to get people to listen.
It's really important that we speak up and tell people what is wrong in this world, and so that we can make it better and we can make a change.
I think I've watched that video 24 times now, and it gets better every time. I pick up on something new every time. Again, if anybody has any feedback or reactions, feel free to type those in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. But you know, we want to kind of cap off our time together by just really emphasizing the importance of taking steps every time you can to help people, especially folks with disabilities, build and exercise those self-advocacy skills. So again, whether it's speaking up and saying, I don't want you to touch me right now, or speaking up and saying, I'm being bullied at school, I need help, or I don't like my job, I want to try something else. Whatever the case is, helping someone to articulate their own needs and make decisions on their own behalf as much as possible. So, we just leave you with some food for thought. How can we, as parents and support staff and social workers and other advocates, how can we create opportunities for decision-making and advocacy at home? So if you have a child with disabilities, how are you helping to create those opportunities for decision-making at your home? And if you're a teacher or a program staff or administrator, how do you help teach self-advocacy skills in your classroom or program? And if you're not right now, maybe how do you think you can build those in? We hope that you can take some of the tips that we talked about today, especially this next tip. Pam, did you want to cover this slide?
Sure. Why is this important? Because we have the right to know. When you know, you can then explain that diagnosis to someone else, and it may help get accommodations at school or later on at a job site. Once your loved one knows how the disability impacts the learning, speaking, and mobility, they can help others understand.
Absolutely. We want you to talk about disability. We don't want disability is not a negative word. Disability is not inherently negative. It's human. And we're all humans. So we have the right to know about any diagnoses we have and how, as Pam said, how is my diagnosis affecting my daily life? It might be affecting some people in every part of their lives. It might be not as important to other people. Some people may feel very close to their diagnosis or being a member of the disability community. Some people might not think it's that big of a deal. It's not that big part of their personality or their life. So helping your loved ones and the people that you are paid to support learn about their diagnosis and how it impacts all of the different ways that they function in this world is very important, because again, the goal is for the person to speak up on their own behalf instead of always having to look to a staff member or a family member or a sibling to answer those questions.